Hey everybody, it's your girl Bunny. To all of my returning subscribers, hey, how you doing? And for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. Kick your feet up, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss any posts. Also follow me on Instagram at the same profile name so you don't miss the sneak peeks of what's coming up next. In this video, we have the season premiere of Iyanla, Fix My Life, Season 7, Episode 1, entitled Shay Johnson, Bleep Your Process. I give a recap of the entire episode with photos offset to the side, and then I give my review and discussion questions at the end. No need to dig around. I have all of the minute marks below. Now, this episode was 2 hours, so we have a lot to recap. So kick your feet up. It's all coming up next. We start with the synopsis from Shay Johnson writing into the Iyanla Fix My Life show. Many of you may know her from Flavor of Love, Charm School, Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, and now Love and Hip Hop Miami. Shay writes in to discuss that she doesn't really have a good, strong relationship with her two brothers, and most of all with her mother. She feels that there's a lack of love that came from her mother, and that her mother paid more attention to her brothers. So Iyanla expresses in a production clip that she needs to figure out, how do you connect with adult children? And now you have older men and an older woman who already had a disconnect as a child. So this is something that has grown over time. And she feels that she must speak with the mother first because they share certain factors: motherhood, being a grandmother, and just conversations woman to woman, because she wants to talk to the mother first to get to the root of why would your children feel that there's this disconnect from childhood. Sandra is Shay's mother, and Sandra is greeted by Dr. D, if you watch the show, Dr. Denora, and she wants Sandra to view a specific mirror before meeting Iyanla. This is a very quick exercise, and this mirror is distorted in view, and there are different messages attached to the mirror, and it has these little quotes and sayings for her to read out loud. And Iyanla uses this exercise to express that your appearance, when it comes to communicating with others, may be distorted, and even sometimes how you see yourself. And Sandra looks into the mirror and says, "I see a strong Black woman." And after she says that, she walks into the room with Iyanla, and Iyanla joins Sandra, and she thanks her for being there for the process and that her daughter requested this invitation. Iyanla tells her, we have the same amount of children. And she takes a moment to be transparent with her. And she says, I was a horrible mother, but I am a much better grandmother. I was a great provider to my children, but I was a horrible mother. And she says, all three of your children have issues with you. Are you aware of that? And Sandra says, I know I have issues with my daughter, but not my sons. My daughter talks to me like I'm not her mother. My sons don't show me any disrespect, and they have never expressed to me that something is wrong. Well, Iyanla says, that's a red flag, that you're comparing your children against one another, and that's not good. Has it ever occurred to you that you have two sons, but your daughter has different needs? When do you think that disconnect with your daughter started? And Sandra says, Shay, it goes all the way back to middle school. And Iyanla's like, whoa, middle school, that's a very long time to not get along with your daughter. And Sandra goes on to explain that, I remember one day I came home and Shay had some friends and they were smoking in the house. And she called me out of my name and she ran out of the house. And then she came back 2 weeks later saying, hey, let me back. But she says, hey, you can't come back here. Not what you did. You can't come back. And Iyanla shares a similar story when her son was about 9 or 10 years old, and he threw a fit and he says, well, I don't want chicken for dinner. And Iyanla says, well, that's what we're having. He says, well, I don't want it. No. And she says, well, when you get the money to buy what you want, you can eat that. And when you put on clothes that you bought, you can wear that. And he's just throwing a fit and saying that he doesn't want to be there. And she says, okay, if you want to leave, you can leave, but you can only leave with the clothes that you bought. And sarcastically, she says, oh, I sent him out there with just his underwear on just so he could have something. But when reality hit him, he came back crying and said, Mama, I'm sorry. Can you please let me back in? And she let him back in. And she says, I haven't had a problem with my son since. Now, what I want to know from you is, where was the discipline to where Shay could think she could call you out of your name and live to tell about it? Or the fact that she wanted to come back but was turned away? Where was the discipline? Where was the control? And why was it that when she came crying to you, there wasn't this save my daughter time? Because as you explained that story, Sandra, all I hear is rejection and abandonment. Shay's behavior now of acting out is a symptom of a much larger issue. So then there's an activity that Iyanla pulls out. She says, I want you to list these in order from most important to least important. And Iyanla wants to get to the roots and the truths of their relationship between her and Shay. And she's printing out these statements that Sandra has said about her daughter. And Sandra notices on the table that there's a quote, and she says, well, I never said this statement. This is not me. And Iyanla says, you did say that. And Iyanla is quick to let her know that hey, I can pull the receipts. And she's like, well, bring me the tape. I never said that. I never said that's something that I wouldn't say. I wouldn't do something like that. It's something that I wouldn't say. And Iyanla said, you very much said that. It is very, very definite that you said that. And so I'm just like, I don't believe I said that. She's like, well, just get the receipts. Pull the tape. Let's have her look at it and have her look at it now. And in the production casting footage, it shows Sandra saying those things that she denied. And Sandra's just like, I don't believe that. You guys edited that. You put those words together to make it seem like I said that. She's like, no. We didn't do this. She said, yeah, your team, they did that. They edited that. And then we have the production say the information was condensed due to time, but none of your words in any way, shape, or form were chopped up and put together. We didn't change or distort, put words in your mouth, or make it seem like you said anything else. We did not do that. And the specific thing that they're having this debate about is when Sandra called her daughter very mean and that she was a demon. And there was some inclination there that she was just a demon from hell. So Iyanla says, with a clap, did you say your daughter was mean? Sandra was like, well, yes. And she says, well, did you say your daughter was horrible? And Sandra's like, yes, I said that. And she said, well, did you say your daughter was a demon? And then Sandra starts to change her statement a little bit. Says, well, I might have said it, and Iyanla's like, you as a mother are out of order, just like your daughter. And there's this reflection of, wow, maybe she's right. And Iyanla makes it known that there is denial, and there's also things and signs of her being quick to point out error in other people, but not in herself. And she says, my job is to interpret the patterns and to help the healing process. So there's this quick activity that she wants Sandra to take with her. And Iyanla wants Sandra to answer some simple questions that you may get to know about your children. And she says, answer these to the best of your ability. And there's things on there like favorite color, favorite food, song, Bible verse, etc. And while Sandra does her activity, Shay arrives. And she looks at the same distorted mirror upon entry. And as she's looking at the mirror, Shay says, well, I see strong, confident, smart, articulate woman. And Iyanla comes in and she says a few jokes as an icebreaker. Because, Iyanla, she says things just to be silly, to break the ice, and to make the other person feel comfortable. And they share a quick little kiki. And Iyanla says, hey, you come up in here, we trying to get your healing on, and you got your, your boobies and your tatas all out. And Shay's like, I tried to cover him up. She's like, whatever, girl. And she's asking her, how are you doing? And she says, well, I'm doing fine. And Iyanla says, well, not fine, because you wrote to the show and there are some issues that we need to work out. And she says, well, what did you see and what did you describe when you looked in the mirror? And Shay says, I said that I was strong, a business-minded woman, articulate. And Iyanla says, wow, you saw all of that, but you saw no distortion. You saw the distortion, but you replaced it with something else. You looked beyond what was off and you just said, I'm just going to call it what it is. And what's hilarious is that your mother did the same thing. You look past the issue and you cover it up and you make it something else. Shay says, well, yeah, I'm her twin. We act just alike. That's where I get my aggression from. And instead of my mom telling me how she feels, it's a screaming match. And she even told me that she wished she had 3 sons. My brothers are her favorite, of course. But my dad, he treats me differently. And Iyanla says, your mother didn't make you by yourself. What's interesting is that your father didn't want to participate. He didn't come. So where's your father? Why didn't he save you? Why did he leave you in a toxic environment if it was so bad? You're blaming one person and protecting the other. And Shay says, I wish he would have gave me the same love my father gave me, and I don't want something to happen and we never developed a bond and we never worked out what was wrong. And Iyanla says, my purpose is to help you with healing and to help restore the purpose, which is love, and how to get to that love. Love is forgiveness. You have to be willing to be open. Your response sometimes is rude and inappropriate. And Shay becomes very offensive and saying, how am I rude and inappropriate? And she tells her it comes from a place of brokenness. You got to let people say what they want to say first, but we have to work together and there's a process. Are you willing to do whatever it takes to get to that? And Shay says, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I just want this relationship between me and my mom and issues with my brothers to be better. And she says, there are going to be times where you don't like me, but we have to get through this and we have to go through this process where everybody says what's on their mind first. We have to listen to one another and move forward, but it's going to take time. We're going to get there. The 2 brothers arrive and we have the eldest brother he calls himself Dr. Joe, but he's Joe. And we have MJ. He calls himself MJ, but his name is Marcus. And he is Shay's youngest brother. And at 15, he left the home and barely speaks to either one of his siblings. And when they walk in, Iyanla jokes and says, oh, you're Dr. Joe, but, hey, I'm the only doctor in here. And she says hello to everybody. She does a little icebreaker with a little key. And she says, I'm the only one that's doctor in here and some other people who are certified doctors. But you are very handsome men, welcome. Go ahead and have a seat and let's get started. And MJ is quick to jump in and says, I think the root of it all is my mom. We never got love from her. My dad was in the Army and she took care of us, but she never gave us love. All she did was just work. And Joe says, I think she was angry with everything with my dad, and we barely talked to one another when she came home. She would work, she would come home, and we really didn't even talk. There really wasn't any compassion, hugs, love, any of that. My dad showed more love to me from afar than she did, and she was with us at home. And Iyanla says, you know what? It's very interesting that you said your dad gave you more love than your mom, but he didn't even want to come. He's not even here today. Please know that the parent that stays, unfortunately, is the one that gets all of the anger. You're placing your dad on this pedestal, and it's evident the mom was unequipped to handle all of that responsibility of being a single mom and having those children after the divorce. Your mother doesn't have a clue about your feelings. She knows that there is static between her and Shay, but you need to tell her. You need to tell her that you have issues with her. And Joe is just like, my mom doesn't want to hear all that. It's going to be hard on her and it's going to be hard for me to do that. And Iyanla says, so you can't be honest and authentic with your mother, just like it's difficult for you to be honest and authentic with your wife. And she brings Sandra in and she says, this got to be done because it's this disservice to you not to express this and share this with your mother. And as Sandra's coming in, there's not this, oh, hey, mama, yay. It's like this, oh, hey, it's this energy of awkwardness. So Sandra sits down and Iyanla says, I'm here with you, Sandra, to support you as a mother, but your eldest son has something to say. And Joe says with a little bit of hesitation, but then lets down, says, Mama, we got some issues. And there's this look of shock, like, what? And then Iyanla says, okay, MJ, say what you need to say. And he repeats what his big brother says by saying, Mama, we have some issues. And you can see the complete shock on Sandra's face. Like, I didn't know that there was issues. And Iyanla's just like, breathe. I know this is hard. We don't need to shut down. You heard that. Now let's just get up and leave the room. And she escorts Sandra outside of the room. And she explains that I'm bringing you out of the room because for them to say that was a big step. And we want to remove you from that environment because we don't want them to lock up and not stop sharing with you and being authentic. But please understand, Sandra, that as men, as your sons, they never told you that because they were protecting you. They were protecting your feelings. But just know this is going to be hard. But I'm with you. But I'm just explaining to you they had to say what was on their hearts. They had to say that. Joe tells Iyanla after she enters the room again, wow, I didn't realize how hard it was for me to tell my mother that. And MJ agrees that it was difficult for him as well. And he goes on to describe that, hey, I haven't even talked to my sister for about 6 to 7 months because she's just disrespectful, rude, and she's just all over the place. And Joe agrees. And Iyanla brings Shay in because we have to do that same process in letting her know how you feel. And MJ tells her, Shay, you're rude and disrespectful. And Shay, you could see the anger building up. And Joe says, you're more rude and disrespectful than I think you are. And Iyanla says, to Shay, didn't I just tell you that? Didn't I just tell you earlier while we were talking that you were rude and disrespectful? And Shay says, can I say something? And Iyanla's like, no. Each person needs to say how they feel and we're just going to leave the room. And Shay, as she's leaving the room, she's saying things to Joe like, you think you entitled just to say what and Iyanla's just like, whoa. Didn't I tell you to be quiet, not to say anything? You asked me if you could say something. And I said, no, we have to be quiet because this is the process. We need to let everybody say what they need to say. Your brothers express their truth and their experience with you. And Shay says, I had some experience with them and I'm not going to be able to speak. I have an opinion. And Iyanla says, yes, you have an opinion. You can speak your piece, but just not now. We have to follow this process. And Shay is getting angrier and angrier. And she's telling her, look, I don't want to be a part of this process if I can't speak my mind. How are you going to tell me we go through this process and I can't even speak my mind? They telling me I'm rude and disrespectful and I can't even defend myself. And she is edging towards the door, trying to go out. And Iyanla is using her body, trying to block her and saying, look, don't leave. We need to talk about this. Just listen to what we're doing. You'll be able to speak your piece, but just try to understand. And Shay starts to curse and say, I don't want to have anything to do with this. This is ridiculous. How are you going to invite me to something I wrote in the show? And you're not going to even give me a chance to express myself. I'm getting out of here. And she's cursing and she's doing all of this stuff, making it well known that she's done. She's done with this process. It seems like people are ganging up on her, telling her she's rude and disrespectful, and she hasn't even had a chance to speak. Iyanla comes out of that house, y'all, with a little bag of Cheetos, walking to the vehicle, knocking on the window and like, hey, you know what? You're not a woman of your word. You said that you were willing to do whatever it took to heal, and you were willing to do whatever it took to start this process to have a better relationship, but you're leaving. And Shay curses out Iyanla and tells her, F your process. I'm leaving, and says a whole bunch of other stuff, y'all. And that's the end of that day because it was just a lot. So the next day, Iyanla speaks with Dr. D because she wants to know what are some ideas and notes that she took from yesterday's events. And Dr. D says, that behavior that we saw from Shay is the exact same behavior she said she wanted to come here and change. But these are patterns that you need to learn how to change. But one gets triggered, sad, angry, and afraid. So it's this pattern of what she does afterwards. So it's not uncommon for someone to do that. And Iyanla says, I see the same patterns with Sandra. Chandra will deny and deny in order to make someone else wrong so she can be right. And Dr. D says, yes, if you're always wrong and you feel like you're wrong about something, you will always fight to be right. And Iyanla says, the family always has an escape process. There's something that happens and then they know that it's time to escape because they don't want to keep going and work on breaking these patterns. It's this process that they have. But what needs to be done, what I feel like I need to do, is I need to be able to show the family how to have a safe haven with one another. Tools to be able to speak their minds emotionally and feel safe. That they can break these patterns and say, I can express myself. I can tell you how I feel, with a healthy way of talking and a healthy way of speaking. So I need to develop a process where they can hear one another. And until we have that, the healing process is just going to be difficult. So they have to feel safe in order to express themselves first. Iyanla meets with Sandra again and breaks the ice by joking with her and saying, wait, where you going? You all dressed up like you going to church. Where you going? And they share a little laugh, but it's a little kiki in the laugh. And she just said, I'm just kidding, girl. You're gorgeous. I love, what you have what you got going on. It's just a little joke. And Iyanla wants to know, mother to mother, how did you sleep last night? What's on your mind? How have you processed what happened yesterday? And Sandra said, I had a sleepless night. I just didn't sleep. I'm just thinking to myself, was I a bad mom? Where did I go wrong? All of these things going through my head. And Iyanla says, when you hear something you don't like, breathe and process it and just clear your head and just listen. And Sandra's assignment, she said, it helped her to understand, there's some things that I really don't know about my children. And Iyanla says, there's going to be moments where you just reflect and you just like, oh my goodness, where did I go wrong with certain things? But she says, you know what? It's going to be a rough day for you. I'm not even going to lie to you, but I'm here for you. I'm a mom. I've been there. And Iyanla holds her hand out and they clasp hands. And Iyanla looks into her eyes and says, are you ready? Are you ready for this process? And I'm just letting you know that I got you. We're going to go through this process, but I'm not going to leave you hanging. Are you ready? And Sandra says, yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this. I want to make things right. So then Iyanla meets with the brothers for breakfast. And she asks MJ, like, hey, are you not having breakfast? And MJ says, I hadn't eaten because I'm just stressed. And, when I'm stressed, I can't eat. And Shay's behavior, believe it or not, Miss Iyanla, is normal for me. I'm used to seeing that. I mean, that's just the way that she behaves. And then my mom, she'll just blow it off like nothing happens. And it makes me not want to talk to her because I know the reaction that I'm going to give with both of them. And Iyanla wants the brothers to just stop suppressing their feelings. She wants them to know that Shay is the one that actually acts out what Joe, MJ, and your mother feel on the inside. She lets it out, but you guys hold it in. And MJ, you run away. She tells Joe you work all the time. And also there's that disconnect with your wife as well. And she says before you can make things correct with your wife, you got to clear some things with your mom. So there's this activity where there's different things of helping someone express how they feel. What are things that you need to say? What are things that you need to express? Express to your mother and whomever. And she wants MJ to start with, what I need you to know is, MJ says, what I need you to know more is, as a child, as if he's speaking to his mother, you didn't really tell me you loved me. I needed that. I needed that physical love. I needed you to hug me. I needed that. And Joe says, yeah, I miss that level of intimacy from my mom. I miss her I didn't get that, telling me she loved me, telling me that she wanted to give me a hug. And so now Iyanla says, you know what? MJ, same question. What do you want to say to Joe? And MJ can't get the words out. You could tell that he's holding back tears. He's holding his head down. And he's just trying to collect his thoughts. And you can tell that he's troubled. And Iyanla says to Joe, now in this moment, I'm going to help you, Joe. what would you do as a big brother to comfort your little brother? And there's this funny little slap on the back. He kind of slaps Marcus on the back. And I was like, no. Pull him in closer. Put your arm around him and let him know that you're there physically. Let him feel you there. Pull him in. Pull him in. You're not alone now. You have each other. You're his big brother. Pull him in. And you can see that MJ is just loving that his brother is pulling him in. And she says, great. Now, MJ, are you willing to receive it? And MJ says, yes. And she says, okay, well, put your arm around him. And they start to hug one another. And you can see the look in MJ's eyes, like his big brother is Superman, like my brother is giving me a hug. And they just hold their heads together. And MJ is just loving every moment. And you can tell that he is relieved by this physical touch from his brother. I just started to cry because it was so absolutely beautiful that MJ just it's like he was his hero and hugging him. And Iyanla says, what do you need Joe to know? And MJ says, you know what? I felt abandoned. Like I didn't have my big brother. You were the only man that was there and Dad was gone. And Iyanla says to Joe, you didn't do anything wrong, Joe. He's just sharing his experience, okay? And Joe nods from understanding. And MJ continues to talk and says, I even had my jealous moments because you had all these talents, sports, and you got all this attention. And I didn't get that attention. I struggled with that. I even struggle still to this day feeling like, am I even good enough? And Joe responds and says, I hear you. Please forgive me. I had no idea how you felt. I was just trying to get away from the inner city so bad, trying to change my life, that I was so focused. I had this tunnel vision. And I didn't even realize that, but it's starting to backfire on me even to this day. And Iyanla wants Joe to physically turn to MJ and tell him what he thinks of MJ. And Joe says, you know what? I think you're so caring and wonderful. You're such a wonderful person. And you're a superstar to me, man. Not what the world thinks as a superstar. You're amazing. And I'm so sorry that you felt that I abandoned you. And I'm sorry for abandoning you. And as he's speaking, we see MJ's face just with these smiles like, wow, my big brother thinks I'm cool. He thinks I'm amazing. Like, it's just because I have an older brother and I think of him like that. There's nothing he could do. I mean, he's just my superhero. And even growing up, my brother would tell me something cool I did. I'm like, wow, my brother thinks I'm cool. And it's just this wonderful smile, like, oh my gosh, my brother said something cool about me. And it was just adoring and beautiful because you could see this kid, this inner kid light up. And Iyanla wants them to just have that moment. And MJ just leaps on his brother, his big brother Joe. And he says, thank you, man. Thank you. And Iyanla says, you know what? Want you to just go outside and have a moment. Just go outside and just talk. And they go outside and they talk alone with no production around. Now we have the mom to enter, and Iyanla wants the mom to say, I'm giving you permission to say what's on your hearts. And she does. And Joe wants to go first and says, Mom, you didn't give me the love that and affection that I needed as a child. And it shows up how I interact with people today. You didn't show me that, just the comforting part of you. You were always so tough. And that's probably why I didn't let people in as well emotionally in my life. You didn't show your feelings. And I don't either. I hustled how you hustled, which is great. I learned that from you. And I learned that from you. And Iyanla says, you know, Sandra, I want you to repeat what you heard Joe say. And Sandra said, I heard you say that I'm a strong woman. I was protecting my family, and that's the only way I knew how. I was broken. I was hurt. Iyanla says, whoa. You're excusing your behavior. And she says, Joe, if I can step in for a moment and stop me whenever I'm wrong, okay? Sandra, what I heard from Joe was that you were emotionally distant. You didn't show physical love at times. You were mean. And you weren't the mother that he needed you to be. No communication. And it affected his life so much that he's focused on working and doesn't know how to be, right? He can do, but he doesn't know how to be with other people, especially his wife. Joey, am I right? And Joey says, yes, like that's accurate. So now try again, Sandra, and acknowledge. And she says, I'm sorry. She just has this breakdown moment where she just says, please forgive me. I just didn't know how. I just didn't know how to do that, to love you like that. And Joe says, I forgive you. But he expresses his feelings. Now it's MJ's turn. And he immediately holds his head down and starts with tears. And as Joey learned, he's comforting him to be strong with a physical touch. And MJ says, as a child, I felt very lonely. And he's talking to Sandra, expressing his feelings. And as he's doing it, you could just see Sandra's just boiling with anger. She looks so upset. And MJ continues and says, I didn't get any affection. And you didn't tell me you love me. Even my dad told me he loved me. Why couldn't you do that? And Sandra says in tears, I didn't know how. I just didn't know how. Please forgive me. And Iyanla says, go to your son. Go to your son and comfort him. And we do see Sandra. She goes to him and she hugs him. And Iyanla says, let him feel the love. Put him in your bosom and hold your son. And we just see how MJ is just like in just pure bliss, finally getting that hug from his mother. Sandra says, I'm so sorry, but I'm here now. I didn't receive that love either growing up, but I'm here now. And now it's time for everybody to realize, and Iyanla wants them to know, that Shay is a very vocal person in all of the pain. She demonstrates what you all hold in. She's the middle child. She's getting it from both ends, from everyone. And Joey, informs his mom that yesterday Shay's behavior was just out of control. And she even told Miss Iyanla, F you and F this process. And Sandra is just frozen in anger, like, I cannot believe she did that. And Iyanla says, you know what? You have to learn how to be responsible for your behavior. And she's used to not being disciplined. Now, Sandra, we got to learn how to come to Shay in a different way instead of anger. Instead, let's try this. Shay, I'm sorry. I didn't model for you how to be a better woman. Please forgive me. Now, how do you think she will react to that? And she says, her heart's broken and she's just been in that behavior for a long period of time, and it's just going to take a while for things to change. Iyanla wants to meet with Joe's wife, who's Brandy, and Joe greets his wife as she arrives. Sandra and MJ try to call Shay and convince her to come back, but Shay's just so upset. And she says, I'm not going to bow down to Iyanla. Iyanla is on this ego trip. And MJ pleads with her and saying that we need you to come back and finish this process. We're doing this process and we're starting healing, and you're not here, and it doesn't feel right because we're missing this piece. I don't want you not to be here. And even Sandra says, look, please, I am trying to change. I want you to just be successful. I appreciate how wonderful you are. Just please, I care about your platform, what you're trying to do, everything. Will you just please come back at 10? Can you just please come back? And we don't hear a response. We cut to another segment with Joe and Iyanla. And Iyanla wants to talk to Joe because she knows he's the eldest brother, and there's a lot of pressure with that and in his marriage. And Joe confirms that all I hear is pressure. My professional life, if that isn't right, it affects my family, and it's hard. And I'm learning how to be a big brother. It's just a lot of pressure. And I know for a fact that my family doesn't get the best of me because I work. And I'm just trying to provide, and I don't know. And she says, well, where are you with your wife? What's the situation with your wife? How are you feeling about that? And he says, well, I already know we got issues with being honest, being authentic, keeping it real. We just need to work with that. And Iyanla says, okay, I'm here to help with that. She meets with Brandy. She asks her where she's from. She's like, oh, girl, you from Detroit? Okay, okay. And Brandy's like, well, I'm from the suburbs. I have to clarify that, but I am from Detroit. So they sit there and they talk, and Iyanla says, well, what are you here for? And she says, well, I'm here for my sister. And Iyanla's just like, well, what sister? Who are we talking about? She says, I'm here for my sister, Shay. I'm just here in support for her. She says, okay, that's great that you're here for that. But I want you to be here because I want to help you with your marriage. Brandy does confirm that within their marriage, there's areas of honesty, deception, and it comes from both ends. It comes from me and it comes from him. And she wants to help her marriage and just to make things better. And Iyanla wants them to be more expressive. She brings her to a room where there is a physical wall between her and her husband. And it's symbolism for suppressed pain and barriers that prevent them from being open and honest with each other. And honesty is what's going to save the marriage. And as Iyanla is explaining the exercise, the wall falls into Brandy's lap. And Iyanla says, well, wow, isn't that interesting how it fell in your lap? How often has he done that to you? Let things just fall into your lap. And Brandy says, ooh, a lot. That's majority of our relationship. And he's just sometimes just leave me solely responsible for the kids, the money, all of the situation. And Iyanla says, you have to express to your man how you feel. Breathe, close your eyes, let it all out. Do not hold back. And Brandy says, him behaving like that makes me feel alone. When you talk to me like I'm small. You're dismissive. I see your insecurities. You need to be adored. And in the midst of you doing that, it makes me feel small. I have to be small so you can be bigger. I feel scared for our sons because they're young black boys and they need your best. And Iyanla's like, yes, this is something that we need to discuss and let out. And I'm glad you expressed that. And Iyanla then takes the broken wall, pieces it, and slams it into Joe's lap and says, now your wife just expressed how she felt. Now what's on your mind? And Joe says, well, I'm sorry you felt that way. And I put so much on you and it makes me sad, guilty, and ashamed. You're not alone and you can trust me with your heart. And Brandy is open to everything and knows everything will have to be shown over time. They hug, but she says, these are things that he said to me before. I just need him to place those things into action. And Iyanla says, I can tell you guys really, really love each other. I know that you love each other. It's just going to take some work. You guys just hang in there. And now that we've expressed our feelings, now that we've gotten that out, you've put it into the atmosphere about what needs to be healed. And Iyanla says, Brandy, you said that you've heard these things before and, you're kind of about what he's saying. And she shares with Joe, in ancient times, when a man wanted a woman, he would kneel at a woman's feet, vowing to her father that he wouldn't hurt her. And Joey bows at her feet. And Iyanla says, so what did that movement, that promise, did that help you, Brandy? And she says, yes, because it was this physical symbolism on what he's trying to do and this promise to her. And Iyanla says, what you just did, that symbolism, you just made a promise to her father that you're not going to violate her and that you're going to try to be the best husband that you can be. And Iyanla says, this is a process. This is going to get better. You just have to put the work in and I can see the love. And now we have to get to the point where we're talking to the rest of the family. So now as a whole, the family has to talk. So Iyanla brings the family into the room. We're still missing Shay. And she shows different flowers. And the one with Jay's flowers seem to have blossomed well. MJ, they're slightly wilted. And Shay's flowers are completely dead. And Iyanla says, the family is like, a garden or a plant. A family blossoms how you water it. Shay expressed to her mom and everybody else how you guys feel on the inside. She's the vocal one. She's the wilted flowers. She's the dead flowers, right? But you get what you water. There's been this lack of connection with her. Then we hear that Iyanla says, Joe, this next exercise, Shay's on her way. You are going to lead it. I have the tools here that you need to lead this last conversation, but I have to dismiss myself and go into the other room because her behavior was disrespectful to me and I don't want to be in the same room as her. So I'm putting it in your hands to lead. And Joe says, okay, I'll do my best. Iyanla leaves the room, goes into the control room so she can watch and listen from afar. Joe answers the door and there's automatically this defensiveness when Joe opens the door and hugs and kisses her. And she's like, oh, so we all huggy and kissy now. Okay. And he's just like, just come in and let's try to talk. So he guides her in and leads her to her seat so everybody can talk. Iyanla explains to Shay as well that she's removing herself from the activity. So immediately Shay says, well, why are my flowers dead? Mine are the only ones that are dead. And Joe says, okay, it's symbolism of how we were watered growing up. Do you think that this is accurate? And Shay says, yes. So he starts off by thanking her for coming back. And Iyanla is still listening and watching in the control room. And Joey says, as your older brother, I didn't take note of your pain. Please forgive me. And Joey instructs MJ to turn to Shay and speak. And MJ pretty much says the same thing and said, I had my moments and I just didn't speak up and I'm the same way. I'm sorry. And I wasn't a good brother. Will you please forgive me? And Shay seems shocked that she's not being, quote unquote, attacked. Everybody's being understanding and admitting their fault first and saying that they apologize and please forgive me. And she forgives MJ. Now it's Mama's turn. And Sandra says, Shay, I'm so sorry. I wasn't there when you needed me. I was zeroed in on me. I forgot about you. And when you would lash out and cry out for help, it made me angry because I didn't know how to deal with that. I was wrong. Please forgive me from the depths of my heart. And Shay forgives everybody. And you could tell that her ice layer around her heart is slowly melting because she does see that this is a different pattern and a different way of speaking to each other. And she says, well, I'm going to forget everybody, but, there's a lot of things that everybody else said. And MJ says, look, we are not perfect. We all have work to do. And Chandra says, yeah, when you're disrespectful towards me in the future, let me leave the room and give me a moment and I'll come back later. And they all share a little laugh, And Joe is just like, y'all all laughing. But if you look at the patterns, that's what you do. You leave, and just like you left yesterday. So if you get heated, everybody just needs to take a moment. And Shay says, well, yeah, I did that the other day, because Iyanla, she was screaming at me and saying stuff that was disrespectful, cursing at me. And, I just had to walk away. And Iyanla is in the control room laughing and looking at the crew like, what? Like, what is she talking about? But Iyanla's just over it. She's just like, whatever. But they all agree in the family that they got to make a commitment to communicate more, be more vocal, and be affectionate. Hug each other. And Joey says, this is new, but we got to start a new process. And we didn't do this growing up, but I'm going to just start this. And he gets up, he says, Shay, stand up and stand right here. And he grabs her and hugs her and says, I love you. And it's just this, oh, way to go, Joe. Hey, Joe, hey, the champ is here. What an amazing lead as the big brother. That was just absolutely phenomenal. But his tone set the tone for everybody else. And everybody joins in and hugs each other. And they are showing compassion and just shedding tears where you can tell that there's these walls, these layers of not speaking with each other, just melting away and going away. And we finally see that bond. And they're joking and showing little kiki when Sandra hugs Shay, and Joey's like, no, Miss Iyanla said you got to put her in your bosom. You got to hug her in your bosom. And they're just finally sharing a laugh. And you can see that there's this beginning of healing. And that is the end of the episode. We see the production notes that the family is getting closer together. They're working on that process. And Joe and Brandy are getting marriage counseling. So good closure and knowing that that healing process has started. And it's amazing to know that everything's not going to be tied in a little bow and fixed in one day. But the purpose of this show is for Iyanla to give people the tools in order to start the healing process and understanding behaviors and what you have, your responsibilities, and certain things that aren't right. First off, let me say that this family is fresh to death. Everybody is so beautiful. The mom was just absolutely gorgeous. Shay is absolutely beautiful. And the sons, Joey and MJ, but his name is Marcus. He calls himself MJ. They are absolutely beautiful, adorable people physically. And it was beautiful to me to see that everybody at some point was open to understanding and learning what they can do to make things better. Now, they all have hurt and they all have toxic patterns. But what's great and beautiful is you have to be open. If you're not open to those changes, it's going to be difficult for everybody to take their part and for everybody to move forward. It was beautiful to see that even though Shay came in later on at the end when all of the time was already gone as working on the exercise as a family, that she at least listened at one point and everybody did their part. Nobody got to the point to where they all were just fed up and they all left, because that would have been a catastrophe, right? So hooray for the family that they're open to changing. And this is something that's common with this issue. There are communication barriers, I think, with any family. This is across the board, any ethnicity, right? Any location of where you are, that this is something that can be disconnects with family. And you know, I want people to watch these shows as classes, even if it doesn't apply to you. I think all of the episodes and all of her shows give us insight on patterns and behaviors to recognize, stopping the crash before it happens, right? Which is great. On a personal note, I'm really saddened that Shay left. I wish that she would have came back. But you know, certain patterns in her behavior, she's used to walking off. She's used to being like that. Viewing her behavior on any show that she's been on, unfortunately, that's the way that she's behaved in the past and that she behaved in those episodes. I really, really hope that she goes back and she rewatches the entire episode as a whole, just to see that it wasn't an intent of Iyanla attacking her, quote unquote, but she felt that way. She felt that her brothers were just telling her what was wrong about her, and she didn't have her opportunity to say how she felt. I hope that she watches the entire episode so she can see that is not what was happening. That is not what was going on. Also, it was disappointing to me that the dad didn't show up. I really, really hope that they do another episode where the dad comes back and takes responsibility for a lot of hurt as well. Like Iyanla said, they are placing the father on the pedestal because he said, "I love you," and he was from far away. But like Iyanla said, Sandra was physically there, so a lot of the anger was towards her. But it takes two to tango, right? She didn't make those children by herself, and I would really like to see that dad there and take accountability for a lot. And I would want to know, why didn't he show up? Why didn't you come to this process that would be great for your children? If you didn't want to see the ex-wife, at least it would have been beneficial to be there for your children. So I hope that Shay, Joey, and MJ really take note of that the father not being there is that missing element in their hearts that they need for closure and healing as well. They got the wheels churning with the healing process with the mom, but it's really necessary for that dad to be there. He really needs to be there. That moment with MJ and Joe was absolutely amazing. That MJ felt a way about his brother, and he wanted his brother to be there. And anybody that has an older brother and older sister, you always just their confirmation and their leadership. You even notice that in the activities. Joe would say one thing and MJ was like, yeah, I agree. I think well, I didn't get the physical love. MJ's like, yeah, me too. That's what. And it's just a beautiful thing knowing that they reconnected and he felt like he had his big brother in his life. I really want the parents as well to be on the show, for them to have their moments as well, because there's a lot of hurt with that. The dad was the way, the mom was there with the symbolism of bricks that were falling into her lap of responsibility. And like Iyanla said, her unfortunately not having those tools of knowing how to emotionally connect with her kids. She was just so focused on providing, which is normal, right? Any single parent would just say, hey, I just need to provide. And anyone that's been raised by a single parent will attest to that. They know, and you learn that the parent is just trying to go to work and provide. And probably by the time they get home, they're emotionally and physically tired. So I could just see how there can be that disconnect of that affection, because you just want to rest and you just want to be left alone. But another thing that I wanted to point out is that the parents' behaviors were unintentionally transferred to their children, not knowing the toxicity, not knowing the patterns, not knowing what was lacking. Because you saw the shock with Sandra when her sons told her, hey, we got some issues. She was like, what? Like, what do you mean? I thought it was just Shay I had the problem with. So just connects and miscommunications. Absolutely wonderful and powerful episode. I thought it was well planned out. I like that they added the extra element of having Dr. D put in her 2 cents to know that this project is surrounded with professionals who do this every single day, who understand what the process is, who can oversee things that are happening. Absolutely beautiful. Production was beautiful. To me, this is reality television, true reality television. Getting real reactions, real processes, which is beautiful. I also want to make it known that counseling needs to be incorporated with everyone's health inspection. What I mean by that is going to a psychologist or psychiatrist has the most important. Mental health is super equal to your physical health. You going to the dentist, the doctor, the optometrist, a psychologist needs to be on the list without a shadow of a doubt. Culturally, it's just now getting to the point within the African American community or the Black community that this is important, because for so long, religion, spirituality, whatever you believe in, has been the source of comfort, has been the source of handling problems, prayer, meditation, etc., whatever your line of faith is. But it's also important to learn that whatever your beliefs are, expressing that, having somebody walk you through your thoughts, walk you through your pain, understanding your pain, that will help you with your healing. Because keeping it all in, suppressing it, ignoring it does nothing. So support in any way, shape, or form when it comes to counseling, when it comes to dealing with pain, when it comes to dealing with miscommunications, understanding distortion, as Iyanla would say, is so important. I hope that you all enjoyed this review. Please leave your comments down below. I can't wait to read what some of your thoughts are, and maybe some things that you want to discuss that weren't in the episode but can correlate with something that happened in your life. It could be miscommunication at work, activities, organizations. Do you notice certain behaviors of individuals that were in an episode, of things of your family, behaviors that you've done? Let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe, share this family-friendly channel with everybody you know. Make sure to check out past videos, some of that comedy, some of those skits that I posted, and also check out the playlist for other movie and television show recaps. In the meantime, you guys, please stay safe, be precautious, but not fearful. of COVID-19. Make sure to love one another. Do whatever you can. This year, 2020, I'll speak for myself and a lot of people, has been emotionally draining. It has been so much that has been going on, you guys. If you need to vent, if you need assistance in something, someone helping you, please let me know and I'll do research to post links of places and numbers free of charge where you can go for help. Okay. In the meantime, I love you guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, evening, whatever time it is you are watching this, and know that I love you. Okay. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye.